in this version of the game, it's a little bit. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the most. They turned it into a video game level. So in this version of the Magic Carpet of the Whole New World scene in this game, you are, flying over top of Agrabah, trying to avoid birds and thunderbolts from clouds and horses that can jump ridiculously high. And it's actually kind of intense. This is actually much more challenging than the escape from the Cave of Wonders, I actually find. So yeah, this is the second Magic Carpet sequence in the game. So yeah, like I said, kind of an even divide between those three types of gameplay in this game. You've got like 2 or 3 Magic Carpet levels, 2 or 3 walking levels, and then 2 or 3 auto-scrolling running levels. So it's like, yeah, really a lot of variety, or not a lot of variety, but like sort of an even. Or I guess I'll say they change it up. They change it up a lot with the gameplay in this game, but that's just such a ridiculous idea, I think, to turn a whole new world into like this crazy shmup level where you're dodging birds and horses and thunderclouds all over the place. Although, what I will say is I'm actually a really big fan of the music, actually, of the Master System in the Game Gear, or whatever sound chip those systems used. And to the point where I'd actually say that I like the music in this version of the game better than either the Genesis or the Super Nintendo versions. The Super Nintendo had decent music, or the Super Nintendo Aladdin game had decent music, but it was a little brassy. A lot of the songs in that game featured like just this trumpet noise that I don't really like at all. The Genesis version had pretty much crap music, but I'm a really big fan of the Master System sound chip in general, and in particular the music in this game, to the point where I'd say that 8-bit Master System version of A Whole New World is probably my favorite rendition of that song across, or at least, outside of the movie, my favorite rendition of that song. My favorite video game version of that song, I would say. So, there's that. And, here we are at, pretty much near the end of the game. We're at pretty much the climax of the film at this point. And I actually can't remember. It's been a long time since I've actually seen the, Disney's Aladdin, like the film for I don't know how many years it's been. But, I was talking before about how I've, memorized a lot of the lines, but, I don't actually remember what happens from this point forward in the film. I think most of the most memorable, I remember Jafar turning into a snake, and then what the actual ending of the movie, but I can't remember what happens between now and then. Although I do remember what comes up next as far as gameplay goes. We've actually got, like I said, we're pretty much at the very end of the game here. We've just got one more running stage and then the final boss. And actually we're at 30 minutes right now. We are actually literally at Metal Gear Solid levels of gameplay to cutscene ratios, because I was it took me less than 20 minutes to beat this game when I was skipping all the cutscenes, and now with cutscenes we're up to 30. Kind of ridiculous. Especially for an 8-bit game in 1994. Wow. I guess you could say it was ahead of its time in that regard, although maybe not necessarily in a good way. This can actually be... I remember having a lot of trouble with this stage as a kid. Not so much with the Game Gear screen cropping issues, more so just with me having terrible reaction time and being bad at video games in general. But actually, you do have to have kind of a light touch on the D-pad in order to sort of get in just the right spot to make your jumps sometimes. Oh, excuse me. Kind of losing my voice here. Okay, I'll take a drink to fix that in a moment. You guys can just enjoy the story. I apologize for this. I actually came down with a bit of a cold just recently before I recorded this. That's just the way of things, isn't it? I've been just crushed by like the amount of work I have recently to the point where it just kind of, it's like technically I have time to record LPs, but it's just I'm so overwhelmed by like just work and everything that it like crushes my soul, and I'm just not motivated to be able to, you know, be my usual peppy, energetic self when commentating. That was the, never mind. Yeah, so yeah, now finally that's all behind me, and I actually have some good quality, happy time to do my LPs, and just when that time comes, I catch a frickin' cold. It's like, isn't that just the way it happens all the time? But, yeah, we're coming up on the final boss, like, just any moment now. Just like any second. It's gonna happen in, like, within, like, 5 minutes or so, I guarantee you. Actually, the genie's angry face here is actually kind of creepy. I don't remember if that was if that was in the film or not, whether they like, I don't know, the thing they did with his eyes here. Actually, this kind of struck me even in the movie, where it's like, Jafar is like, I want to be Sultan, and he like gets Sultan clothes, and then he's like, okay, now I want to be a sorcerer again, and then he like loses his Sultan clothes, and it's like, what was the point of, like, I mean, I understand he's still the Sultan, but still. Just, like, the very, very quick, like, there and back again costume change just always struck me as weird, even in the film. Especially so in, like, now in the game, when, like, stuff like, you know, drawing sprites and stuff, it's, like, you know, time-consuming. It's like, yeah, someone actually took the time to draw an 8-bit Sultan Jafar sprite, just so it can be displayed on screen for, like, less than 3 seconds. Okay. Oh, well, still a nice little detail, I guess. I don't know why. It makes me think of that scene from, okay, so here we are at the final boss. This first form, if you really want to call it that. So there's really nothing to this fight. It's just he sort of launches fireballs at you, and as long as you don't walk into them, you're fine. Anyways, I was just going to comment about how the quick Sultan clothes change reminded me of that scene from Kung Pao Enter the Fist, where it's like, the dude's like, I am a great magician. Your clothes are black. I don't know why I had felt the need to bring that up. But so yeah, this boss fight is actually pretty much, second form is pretty much the same as the first, where he just breathes fire at you, and as long as you don't walk into it, you're fine. Yeah, there's like nothing to that boss fight, even on the, yeah. There are actually, so yeah, basically he has a few different attacks that you didn't get to see. He's got the bouncing fireball, he's got one where he breathes fire right in front of you, and he's got another one where fire sort of travels along the ground. But he almost never uses that one. And even then, it really doesn't make any difference. It's just, yeah, in fact, the guy takes so few hits to kill that you can honestly just ignore the fire, tank all the damage, and just trade hits, and it's like totally easy, pathetic final boss, and that was it. This is the end of the game. We're into the ending now. So, yeah. Definitely the least impressive final boss between the 3 different versions of Aladdin, for sure. And did I end up talking about... Yeah, I think I mentioned how I was disdainful of the SNES version of this game back in the day, but eventually came to prefer it when I tried it again years later. Whereas the Genesis version, I think, doesn't really hold up so well. Still better than this one, though, which is kind of all around. This isn't a bad game by any means, though. Like, it's certainly like the idea of like having an Aladdin game that controls like Prince of Persia is kind of a no-brainer. Excuse me, no-brainer, and I'm kind of surprised that neither of the other versions of this game really did that. Which is not really a criticism or anything. It's just kind of surprising that they didn't do it that way. But, you know, it doesn't really have that Prince of Persia level design. It's really just kind of your, bog standard linear platformer, really, with slightly unusual controls for the genre. But, yeah, here we are with the ending. And, yeah, you know, it's a nice little ending. A very interesting ending, I'll say. If you guys know what that means at this point. I never understood this part of the movie plot, even as a kid. It's like, he wished to be a prince, so like he's a prince. I don't understand what Jafar did to make him not be a prince anymore. Like, he took away his prince clothes, but it's like, I don't see how Jafar could, like, sorcerer away Aladdin being a prince. It's like, did he just, like, wave his... Like, Jafar is, like, that powerful a sorcerer where it's just, like, he waves his staff and then, like, suddenly Aladdin's parents aren't royalty anymore? It's like, I see the genie can make those kinds of changes. The genie can, like, wave his hand. It's like, sure, you're a prince. Your parents were royalty. You are Prince Ali Ababwa. But I don't see how anything Jafar did made him, like, not a prince anymore. Unless, I guess, just maybe back in those days in Arabia, like, being a prince had nothing to do with royalty, and it was just, like, it was all about the clothes. And it's just that, yeah, Aladdin was just no longer a prince from the moment he lost the prince outfit. Which could actually be the case for all I know. I don't know anything about any cultures other than my own. I don't even know my own culture. Bah, culture. Who needs it? I've got video games. Much more worthy area of study than anything in the real world. So, yeah, anyways, yeah, here we are. That was Aladdin, and we've got our very, very sweet, very nice, beautiful 8-bit rendition of A Brave New... Jesus Christ, Brave New World? What? A Whole New World to listen to over the credits. And that was Aladdin for the Sega Master System, which is essentially identical to the Game Gear version of Aladdin, which is the one that I played as a kid, and now I've played this one, and now you guys have seen it. Yeah. Okay, so we're seeing all these names in the credits now, so who are these guys? Just maybe so you guys can learn something, maybe, from this LP. This game was developed by a company called Sims, which is nothing at all to do with, like, the Sims studio that for an EA that makes the Sims games. That's nothing to do with this. Sims is a Japanese company that made, I guess, video games for consoles back in the day, and yeah, apparently they're still around today, making, like, fishing games and crap like that for the Wii, and not terribly interesting. But when I was researching this company, I found, like, nothing noteworthy except that apparently Sims the name Sims is an acronym. So this game was developed by the company Sims, which stands for Soft Development Innovation Multi-Success. I don't know why development is in there. The D isn't part of the company names, but I guess SDIMS wouldn't have made any sense, so instead they went with Sims, Soft Development Innovation Multi-Success, which makes much more sense, I think. Yeah. So, and now, there it is, the more you know. So yeah, that's all I've got to say about this game. You know, it's another version of Aladdin that you guys might not have been familiar with. It's one I grew up with as a kid. It holds up decently, I think. It's not a bad little game. It's a decent way to kill time on a 3-hour drive to Grandma's house, certainly, which is what it was for me back in those days. Although it obviously won't, you know, you're not going to kill 3 hours with this game. You have to bring a book or something along with it, or some other Game Gear games, which is what I did. This game is very short. But nevertheless, that is Aladdin for the Sega Master System. Once again, this has been Jasu Bakuhatsu. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.